I had moved to Los Angeles to fill the void left by Shelley Mann in the group called the LA Four with Ray Brown and Bud Shank and Lorendo Almeida. Shelley left the group. Ray Brown hired me, and I was 24 years old, right off of Woody Herman's band, coming out here, and went into clubs every night to hear, which they were plentiful at that time, so I could hear Jay Cannell one night on drums and Shelley with his trio another night. And I walked in on Shelley's trio with Mike Wofford playing, and that's the first that I knew of Mike Wofford. I want to say 78, January 78. And immediately realized, because being a drummer and Shelley being a big hero of mine, I was focused on him. But as many of us have learned about Mike, his artistry just sort of grabs you by the throat, if you will, after about 5 minutes, and you go, this guy isn't moving much, and he doesn't look like he's commanding much attention. But if you're listening, you're all over this guy's talent. So I went in to hear them several times, and it was such a great trio. I felt like they were equal parts in the trio. And Mike was unassuming, not a piano leader in that trio because it was Shelley's group, and not that he's that way anyway if it is his own trio. And I really felt it was equal, and I learned a lot from them. And then later on in getting my own trio, I wanted to keep that in mind, that they should be equal parts in the trio. I then saw him as an accompanist with Sarah Vaughan around the same time, I believe, and I thought, man, he's got that talent too, because playing with a vocalist is its own talent, and a lot of piano players who play in trios don't share the talent of being able to be an accompanist for a singer, and vice versa. When I met him, we didn't really have that much to say because he was so quiet, and I was such a Shelley fan, and Shelley was such an outgoing personality that Mike was there, but Shelley was kind of holding court. So it wasn't until later that I got to know Mike personally, and then wanted to play with him. Of course, he was Shelley's favorite piano player, and Shelley, made no bones about it. Right out of the gate, this is Mike Wofford's my favorite piano player. So that further solidifies in my book how great he is if Shelley loves him that much. So we got to play together later on, and I just noticed that without trying to or meaning to, I had Shelley-isms going through my head musically while I was playing with Mike, and he commented on that after we played. And to me, it was Mike bringing out that musicality in my drumming, and so his style of playing actually asked for that, and I couldn't do anything else that would be better than the way Shelley approached playing with Mike. So I think we have that in common. Every time we play, the little glances across the bandstand when there's something that we both know that maybe Shelley would have played, and not to mimic or become someone else. It's just that way of thinking and that approach to playing the instrument that Mike's playing offers to you if you want to have big enough ears to hear it and crawl into that. The many piano players that I've been fortunate to play with all offer something different. And to me, I had to approach each pianist, and I still do this, with their own symbol sometimes, with their own concept that I need to go one way or the other with them. If I need to create a busier atmosphere around them, if I have to lay back a little bit in leaving some room for them. And something I had to learn right away because, I guess the first hot piano player I played with was Monty Alexander, of any, international acclaim. And I played with many piano players before that I loved playing with. But as far as, putting my name on the map, I think it was Monty Alexander. So the next few piano players I tried to make Monty, when I'd play with them, I thought, well, this worked for Monty, so this will work for this guy, and they didn't have to say anything to me. I knew that what I was doing wasn't working with them. So, we're all individuals. We all approach the instrument differently. And I think you have to have the antenna out immediately and figure out what you need to do to make this work and to play in a situation that makes everyone in the group sound as good as they possibly can. And I think that's what Mike does. Mike is one of those players who embraces the talent on the bandstand and has everyone in mind and asks for them to do the same for him, in his quiet way. So that's one thing. The second thing is his harmonic sense is unbelievable. I mean, he can play 3 chords and bring tears to your eyes. And, not schmaltzy. No, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about go right to your heart and nail an emotion. And Mike can do that. And there are very few piano players that can do that. I think Bill Evans was one that could do that. When I still listen to the 60s recordings from him, and he'll hit a spot and like, wow, there it is. And Mike does the same thing. And you look over like, Mike, did that get to you too? And Mike's just at the office doing his job. So you kind of feel like, why did this tear me up? And he's just over there doing this. So he has that ability to go right to a listener's heart and to other musicians' emotions and nail that. His technique, of course, is Mike Wofford's technique. It's not in the way. There's plenty there to do whatever comes to mind, and he uses it in such a musical manner that you don't feel like overplaying or being too technical or again, it's that let's all serve the music together to make everyone in the band sound as good as we possibly can. And those are the things that I love about Mike's playing when I play with him. Oscar Peterson and Ray Brown said about Hank Jones that Hank knew more about the pedals on the piano than any other pianist that they had ever played with. I mean, he was a master of using the pedals. And for example, people don't, a lot of piano players don't even use them. They'll use a sustain pedal and maybe a soft pedal sometime, but you look at their feet and they're tapping it in time, or they're not really using it that much. But to watch Hank Jones do that, it was sort of like watching an organist that would play the pedals and just sort of dance across the pedals. I bring this up because I think Mike has spent a lot of time on the instrument, knowing all there is that the instrument has to offer. You can tell that by his touch. He has a really delicate touch when it needs to be in a ballad. He can dig in and be a big band shot chorus with 2-fisted piano. I think he's covered the whole realm of what you need to do as a jazz piano player. And I also think, even though we don't see this, I think in talking with him over the years that he's his own man, and you can suggest things to him, but he knows the best thing to play at that time that you might not have thought about. So if you let him, he'll make you sound like $1 million. But if you start suggesting things to him, I've seen, he'll just sort of look at you and you can see the wheels turning like, yeah, but what I'm going to play is going to knock you out. So I think that's maybe the answer to your question. I think it's identifiable because, let's face it, in jazz, it's the only kind of music where people want to hear your personality, what kind of day you had, who you are, and you have to know who you are as a jazz musician, and Mike Wofford does. And he's not afraid to show that to the listener or the other musicians. So that's why I think you can identify him. Technique on younger players, on that topic you brought up, I think most young players who would shed a lot of technical patterns and wizardry, if you will, at such a young age, that gets them in the front door. But you have to know how to keep a job by playing music. We are in the music business. We're not in the technical wizardry business. So after a while, somebody's going to pull your coat and say, "Hey, put half of those notes in your pocket because there's no room for me to do anything." And the listener can't digest all those things. It's like a run-on sentence that you're insisting they listen to. So breathe after a sentence. So I think that's one of the qualities Mike has in knowing how to use his technique. And one last thing on that, I had a drum teacher, uh, my very first snare drum teacher for 5 years. Before I was allowed to get a drum set, it was rudimental snare drumming, military style. And he said a lot of things, but one thing he said was, make it look easy. If people see you working hard, they're not, they're going to be tight. Their shoulders are going to be up around their ears while they're listening to you. So make it look easy. And then MTV came in and ruined all of that. Let's play a dumb beat and make it look difficult, and we'll make more money. So, but I'm kind of that older school of thought of when I go see people play, it's like I want to sit there and in 5 minutes say, how did he play that? He didn't even move. Instead of, he's moving unnecessarily, and you don't have to do all that to get one note on the piano. So a mic does make it look awfully easy. I don't think Mike is really concerned with that. I think that there are many musicians who just want the opportunity to play the music that they love to play with musicians they love to play with. And whatever comes with that is icing, on the cake. But the cake is that you get to play the music that you love with great musicians and share that with them. I think, it makes getting a job easier maybe because the word of mouth travels a little faster if you're, the hot new flavor of the month. But again, you have to sustain that with what you do at the instrument. So I've never gotten any kind of feeling from Mike that he's unhappy about. In fact, I think maybe he doesn't like the limelight too much. I think he's happy just being over there at the piano creating masterful works, without any sort of, big to do about things. It seems like he's happy with what he's got going. I do think that even though he came in during that West Coast period, I don't consider Shelly Mann's trio West Coast jazz. I don't consider anybody in that group a West Coast musician, even though, Shelly grew up in New York. He married a Rockette, and he's a New Yorker. He just happened to locate here and be on a few records that were West Coast jazz, meaning lighter time feel from the rhythm section and kind of keep it skating and smooth. But I don't consider his trio with Mike a West Coast jazz example. Mike was digging in, and it just happened to be on the tail end of that, where it was kind of keep everything calm and mellow on the Pacific Jazz label and Contemporary label, and don't get too hot, But then Shelley took the quintet into the Black Hawk and blew the windows out with Connie Condoli and Monty Budwig on bass and Victor Feldman, and it was so that really, to me, that wasn't West Coast jazz. West Coast was Art Pepper plus 11 and kind of smoother, non-net, 10-tet kind of bands. I think Mike kind of went for it in that trio. So even though it was during that time, I just have to that's my own view on that's not really examples of West Coast jazz, which a lot of people want to consider that as. But to me, it's too hot for that, too creative, and too, there were no boundaries. You didn't have to do anything in Shelley's trio to stay within that boundary. Mike has an incredible wry sense of humor that comes out on and off the bandstand. And he is from that group of musicians that sort of would look with that sideward glance and pop out some kind of line that you think, man, that's so hip. I wish I would have thought of that. And funny and just cutting and sarcastic in a great way. And I think, we play our personalities. And I think musically, he's able to do that too, and kind of get the audience to giggle once in a while. And so, did he really say that at the piano? And I love hanging out with him just to hear some of those stories of those players in his age group that I just missed, but I knew them and I played with them a little bit. But he has all these wonderful stories, of all these humorous little anecdotes of the people. So, but that does come out as playing sense of humor, and I think it's valid. I think it's really important. We are in the entertainment business, we are not in a practice room woodshedding just what we want to hear. This is the entertainment business, and so you can kind of bring the audience to what you have in mind musically, and I think Mike does a great job of that if the audience is willing to come on in and listen and not be mesmerized by technique or flashy showmanship, or not that Mike can't do it, he chooses not to. I think he'd like to invite you into his world at the piano instead of say, here's my thing, I'm going to put it in your face, and here it is, folks. Do I get the cover of Downbeat next month? He just doesn't have that in him, and I'm grateful he doesn't.
Bob Magnuson said top 50 jazz pianists of all time, Mike would be in that group.
Yeah, sure. I'll vote for that.